What do you think? A whirlwind marriage for 3 years. I never dared to speak a word to my wife, by Ningbing, even once. The next time we met, I was at a bar chasing after a beautiful woman for her contact details. You know, I never had a wife since I was little. At that moment, a woman sitting next to me suddenly sneered Fang Yuan. Did I get my marriage certificate with a dog? Her tone, eerily familiar, sent a chill down my spine. When I took a closer look, it seemed like my wife, who had been abroad for 3 years and never really had the best temper, was back. My buddy had been dumped again. He was crying his heart out at the bar. Please, God, give me a girlfriend. I just can't stand the pain of a breakup. After saying this, he simply, from a distance, a long-legged woman sitting in the shadows caught my eye. Please, just him. Can you get me her contact details? I yawned. No, I have morals. After all, I'm married. Although I haven't seen my wife even once since we got married. My buddy looked at me. There were no beautiful women around. I want to get back together with my ex. A few minutes later, I was holding my buddy's phone, smiling as I tapped the woman on the back. She turned around. Hello. Would it be possible to add me on WeChat? I asked sweetly. She lowered her eyes. She saw my gaze through the gold-framed glasses I was wearing. It was dark and inscrutable. My buddy's gaze was sharp. He could see right through everything. This woman, at a glance, was clearly someone sophisticated. Her aura stood out sharply against the noisy surroundings. He had been sitting in the corner ever since he walked in. From time to time, he would turn his head to chat with the person next to him. His manners were graceful and poised. I'm sorry. No WeChat. The woman rejected me without hesitation. Her brows and eyes were as faint as the morning mist. It left me guessing while low laughter echoed around us. Boss Bai is so heartless. I just wanted my buddy to have something good. So I held my phone high, smiling innocently at him. I've never had a wife since I was young. Look how pitiful I am. The woman squinted at me. She stared as I tried to look miserable, but she remained unmoved. I felt a bit guilty. This trick works on everyone else. It shouldn't be failing with him, though. Suddenly, a sharp light flashed before my eyes. A priceless necklace caught my attention. It was a limited edition spring piece from a well-known brand. A few months ago, I had bought it at a high price and sent it to Europe. It was meant to connect with my cheap wife, to reassure her to focus on her work abroad. If she's socially anxious, I wouldn't go visit her. But at this moment, the necklace was obediently draped around the woman's neck. It felt oddly familiar. A bad premonition struck me suddenly. Laughter rang out from around us. Didn't you say your husband has social anxiety? He seems quite lively now. The light mixed with shadows, casting an eerie glow on Bai Bingbing's profile. It made her look even more sinister. I immediately turned to flee. Halfway, someone grabbed me and dragged me back. I heard a calm voice. There's no rush, Fang Yuan. You've never had a wife since you were little? Then was my marriage certificate issued with a dog? I was pulled into the center of the crowd. Only then did I realize they were here to discuss business. You social anxiety types like coming here to hang out? Bai Ningbing found some free time. She began to focus all her attention on me. I immediately shook my head like a rattle drum. This is my first time here. If Bai Ningbing found out that I was in the country, swiping her cards, living a carefree life, would she kill me? Mr. Fang, we meet again. Where's your girlfriend from last time? Suddenly, someone familiar dropped their hand onto my shoulder. It was the bar owner. My hand trembled. I nervously pointed at him. Don't say anything weird. The bar owner realized something. He quickly covered his mouth. Bai Ningbing suddenly smiled. She placed a stack of cash on the table bare. Is there anything else he needs? Come on, tell me. The owner's face lit up with a smile. He's only ordered a few models before. Bai Ningbing faintly curved her lips into a smile. Models more suited for people with social anxiety. On the way back, Bai Ningbing stopped bothering with me. She sat in the car, focused on editing a contract on her tablet. I chattered away beside her. The last model was someone I helped my buddy book. And that woman, she's my buddy's sister. She's actually not bad looking. She even calls him Big Brother. Bai Ningbing lowered her head. Her expression was profound, inscrutable. Her long fingers tapped the laptop. Her voice was like Kui Lingfu's. It made the listener's heart race with unease. I was a bit panicked. I pulled out my phone for help. I found that the group chat with my buddies had already exploded. Dozens of voice messages filled the screen. I grinned and pressed the phone to my ear. I bet Fang Yuan could still get her WeChat. He had just said, "This woman has the kind of face that promises a big family. Getting pregnant with twins in one night is no dream." I was about to tell them they had the wrong person when I sensed something odd in the atmosphere of the car. Bai Ningbing was looking at me coldly. Her thin lips were tightly pressed. Her anger seemed ready to burst out. The loud voices from half an hour ago. The conspiracy was leaking out from the phone speaker. Every word clear and unmistakable. "This woman is so beautiful. I'm giving her to you, just like that." The driver silently raised the partition. In the cramped darkness of the car, Bai Ningbing put down her tablet. "Sun Montang by Lingding." She repeated my words, each one colder than the last. "Fang Yuan, you're so lucky. Why don't you want her?" I was trembling uncontrollably. I felt like I was about to shrink into the door crack. I was weak. "I don't want her." Bai Ningbing took off her glasses. Leaning back against the seat, she let out a heavy sigh. Just when I thought she was too old to care and wouldn't bother with me, she suddenly yanked me over and pinned me on her lap. With a cold smile, she ordered, "Take off your jacket. If you dare say no, I'll kill you." The car stopped in front of the Bai family's old mansion. The lights were blazing in the villa at this late hour. I followed Bai Ningbing out of the car. My clothes were haphazardly tossed in the back seat of her car. She glanced at me with a faint reminder, "Button up your suit." I thought she was about to unleash some wild side of hers, but it turned out she was just bringing me back to join a family dinner. The door opened. Inside stood a young man, Senior Bai Ningbing. He smiled brightly. "You're back," Bai Ningbing's stepfather explained with a laugh. "We heard you were back. Qiang insisted on coming to see you." Qiang was Bai Ningbing's stepfather's son from a previous marriage. He was a buddy of the Bai family's elders. They had a good relationship. It was said that, in the past, the Bai family had high hopes for the marriage between Bai Ningbing and Qiang. But then Qiang went to Europe to study literature, and that marriage plan quietly faded away. However, some people said, "Bai Ningbing married me," and went to Europe the very next day just to chase him. Could it be that she returned with him this time? Bai Ningbing's stepfather smiled and pulled out a chair. "Qiang wants you to sit next to Bai Ningbing." Just as Bai Ningbing was about to call out to me, I felt a green light flicker in my eyes. Like a wandering spirit, I floated past. "Is there any food? I'm starving to death." Without waiting, I plopped down beside Qiang. Now there was only one empty seat left. It was the spot across from me and Qiang. Bai Ningbing's stepfather looked a bit awkward, so he had no choice but to let Bai Ningbing sit beside him. During the meal, I sat directly across from Bai Ningbing. Everyone was enjoying the dinner, and the elders at the table were praising Qiang for his academic achievements. "Qiang, are you planning to stay in the country this time?" He nodded, casting a shy, almost bashful glance at Bai Ningbing. Bai Ningbing lowered her head to eat, occasionally discussing business matters with her father. It seemed like she didn't hear a thing. As she spoke, she casually swapped my favorite little cake for a plate of stir-fried vegetables in front of Qiang. She gave me a plate of bland greens instead. The atmosphere was painfully quiet. Only the sound of clinking plates and glasses could be heard. I was about to lose my temper when my fork suddenly fell to the floor. Bending down to pick it up, I caught a glimpse of Qiang's shoes, reaching under the table toward Bai Ningbing's skirt. It was as if light was subtly flirting with me, taunting me right under my nose. I took a deep breath. I suddenly reached out and patted Bai Ningbing's head. Her chopstick slipped from her hand and fell straight into her plate. Although we weren't exactly close, this kind of behavior felt a bit too sudden. But who cared, right? Bai Ningbing, what's wrong with you? In response to my less-than-friendly question, Bai Ningbing cleared her throat softly. Her expression remained unchanged. It's nothing, she smiled faintly, nibbling on a piece of bread. Her hand moved upward. Bai Ningbing's face froze for a moment. She looked up, her gaze icy as she stared at me. Fang Yuan, have you finished eating? I blinked. Taking a break, I grinned and smiled. Every time Qiang made a move, I mimicked it almost like a shadow. Bai Ningbing's face darkened more with each passing moment. Finally, she suddenly grabbed my hand tightly. No matter how I tried, it wouldn't come loose. This time, I was the one in a panic. I glared at her in surprise. Fang Yuan, why aren't you eating? Bai Ningbing asked, her voice filled with interest. Has something affected you? No, I gritted my teeth. Still, I forced myself to maintain a polite smile. The next second, my hand under the table escalated its actions. Bai Ningbing gritted her teeth. Can't you be a little more obedient? When I flashed a grin, Bai Ningbing suddenly released my hand. She stood up, I'm done eating. Enjoy the rest of your meal, she said. And with the entire family watching, she hurriedly left the room and headed upstairs. Qiang immediately set down his chopsticks. He followed her upstairs. Bai Ningbing, I have something to give you. He chased her into the study. Bai Ningbing, I have something to give you. I lay in the bedroom, chatting sarcastically with my buddy. Why does she like getting me involved in this marriage thing? My friends all chimed in, their voices overlapping. I think she's trying to show off to you, demonstrating her charm. What she means is, with this trick, she can get plenty of guys to fall for her. An open marriage. He's not losing anything. It's to make you show him more respect. I scrambled off the bed in frustration. So, what should I do? My friends gritted their teeth. Flirt with him, make him fall for you, then dump him hard. A few minutes later, I slowly crept closer to the study. I quietly cracked open the door just a little. A faint light spilled out from the room. Inside, Bai Ningbing was sitting in front of the computer. It seemed like she was in a meeting. The soft blue glow illuminated her beautiful features. In my ear, I could hear my buddies chattering away. Fang Yuan, don't be scared. I lunged forward, my eight-pack ABS exposed to the cold air. It sent a shiver down my spine. If this can't win him over, then I've wasted all these years. I gritted my teeth and suddenly shoved the door open. The door slammed into the wall with a heavy crash, instantly drawing his attention. Bai Ningbing's gaze fell on my outfit. Her eyes darkened slightly. Fang Yuan, do you need something? I couldn't keep up the act any longer. With a single word, I boldly walked in, pushing the door wide open. I couldn't get him, so I casually surveyed the room, my gaze sweeping across the office. Bai Ningbing casually leaned back against the cushion, her gentle eyes hiding a trace of defiance. Provoking me, I sat next to her, my hand brushing along her leg. With a smile, I said, Bai Ningbing, how about we discuss something? Her eyes flicked to my hand. She replied softly, sure, since we're not familiar with each other. I think there's no need to get to know each other further. Why don't we just go our separate ways? The room fell into an eerie silence. Bai Ningbing's expression didn't change. Her voice was soft, barely audible. What did you just say? I was afraid she hadn't heard me, so I raised my voice. I said, let's go our separate ways. The next moment, the door behind me opened, and I heard Bai Ningbing's mother's voice, caught in her throat. Before I could react, Bai Ningbing yanked me to her side, just in time to hide my hand beneath the table. You're here. The sudden stillness in the room made the atmosphere incredibly awkward. My mind went blank from the shock. I could have crawled into the ground and disappeared. Don't expect me to explain. I'm too socially anxious to explain anything. Bai Ningbing's mother cleared her throat. It seems it's not really convenient for us to talk here. Bai Ningbing laid her head on my chest. her eyes locking onto my reddening ears. A glimmer of amusement flickered in her gaze. It was me who asked her to come. She took the blame herself. Banana scratched her head absent-mindedly. Young people full of energy, but they must learn to be mindful of the situation. Fang Yuan, you're just a kid. Don't keep messing with people. It was Bai Ningbing. Listening seriously to the lecture, I won't do it again. Bai Nana left in a hurry, and the room fell into quiet. Bai Ningbing's heated body pressed against me through her skirt, transmitting its warmth, every inch of it. The position was a little too intimate, especially the sensation below. It made me freeze in place. I didn't dare to move. Above me, I heard his voice, low and teasing. Do you really like showing off your ABS? Is it fun to tease me like that? Amid his laughter, I bolted, escaping the scene. The next day, I fled back to my apartment in the city. But to my surprise, Bai Ningbing's assistant followed me there. He placed some fresh clothes in the master bedroom, smiling as he said, "Mr. Bai bought you some shirts. He said you know what to do with them." I was blushing so hard. I shoved them all under the bed. Actually, I was supposed to go to a signing event today. Ever since 3 years ago, when I shared a few hundred words online, I accidentally launched myself into a career of online writing, and since then, I've never been able to stop. To this day, I've written over 6 million words of content. But there's a secret that I can't let Bai Ningbing know. I once wrote a novel using our names. It's still on the finished list. And if you search for her name on the website, it doesn't just pull up her personal bio. It also shows her being rated as the most sexually charged female lead, and the news about the scandalous details. Who knew that a simple, random write-up could land her on the charts? Thankfully, Bai Ningbing never checks that stuff. And unless something goes awry, she probably won't find out in this lifetime. The signing event was scheduled in the bustling city center. A lot of fans showed up. Aside from the signing portion, the organizers set aside time for fan interaction. As Bai Ningbing led a business delegation past, my little fans were enthusiastically asking about when the book would be published. I smiled and said it's still being edited for now. Once the timing is right, it'll be released. Just my luck. When I looked up, I saw Bai Ningbing standing on the second floor. His gaze was deep and focused as he listened to my speech, even from such a distance. It felt like I could see his eyes subtly narrowing in amusement. My heart skipped a beat. Something seemed off. It felt like everything was about to unravel. The fan club even brought along a manga adaptation of the female lead, Bai Ningbing, along with some fan fiction, and they asked me to read and showcase it in front of everyone. Bai Ningbing just stood there listening. The entire interview segment was barely finished when I bolted. On my way home, I received a message from my agent, Dao Dao. "You've been exposed." "Exposed? What do you mean?" "Dao," she replied, "his fans are saying your book is plagiarized from his. He, Qiang, is a rising star in the online literature world. During a time when the industry was struggling with low traffic, he shot to the top ranks by releasing his Funkexi manuscript. Not long ago, he secretly inserted Bai Ningbing's character into his own book. He also stole a few key plot lines. Before I could even take legal action, his fans had already uncovered the similarities. This group of people didn't even look at the creation dates. They blindly accused me of copying without a second thought. Dao Dao sneered. He's probably freaking out, worried his fans will turn on him. I sank into a kind of silent despair. Dao Dao poked me a bit. "Don't be mad, this situation's actually working in our favor." I looked at the trending search results and felt a headache coming on. Why did this have to happen now? Why did I go viral like this? Would my secret still be safe? Because Bai Ningbing had already discovered the discrepancies. I found myself sitting in a coffee shop just outside my apartment. I didn't dare to go home. Suddenly, I heard a familiar voice behind me. "No need to worry, I don't dare compare myself to the senior writers." I turned around, and to my shock, it was Qiang. He was sitting with a group of girls. The girl across from him looked at him in awe. "Qiang, hubby, I think your writing is so much better than Fang Yuan's. You definitely need to keep going, okay? Qiang responded cheerfully. This book's about to be published soon. I'll send you a copy once it's out. That's awesome, thank you. I held my coffee, walking over. So you're Qiang? One of the girls frowned, clearly displeased. Who are you? I smiled faintly. I'm a Fang Yuan fan. She withdrew her neck and walked off, just in time to give me the seat I needed. I sat across from Qiang. Qiang chuckled. Sorry about my fans bothering you recently. I hope you're not too upset. I know you published earlier than me, but I haven't read your work yet. He paused for a moment, then laughed. Honestly, though, I think some parts you wrote are pretty embarrassing. Wouldn't want any elders catching a glimpse. I sneered. Then explain to me. Why does the female lead's background, upbringing, personality, and even her living environment match mine exactly? Qiang hesitated. Just because you used something as material, does that mean no one else can? Then it hit me. The male lead in his book had studied abroad in Europe, had secretly admired the female lead for over 10 years, and finally, after returning to China, saw his dreams come true. I lost interest in continuing the conversation with him. Before I left, I said, Mr. He, me and Bai Ningbing getting divorced. That's still a long way off. Don't dream too early. Qiang's face turned pale with anger. He couldn't even get a word out. Back home, I locked myself in the study, opened both our works side by side, and started untangling the timeline, reading my own words. Carefully woven into his writing, I saw readers commenting, wow, the author's plot construction is so clever. It's the most captivating story I've ever read. I've almost lost my composure several times. Gradually, it had become deep into the night. By pushed open the study door, she saw me staring at the computer, my gaze distant, my eyes were bloodshot, muttering to myself, plagiarism, pretentious. Brother Dog will hammer you into the 18th level of hell. He turned on the light and walked over. What's wrong with Fang Yuan? He saw Zheng Sheng. I hurriedly shut down the computer, but he reached out and stopped me. Why panic? It's just that you wrote me into your novel, isn't it? Is it necessary to be so obsessed with it? He didn't even tell my parents. Before we got married, my dad had warned me repeatedly not to make any big decisions after marriage. If nothing unexpected happens, Bai Ningbing should ensure you'll never have to worry about food or clothing. But I'm not made of clay. I must have my own hobbies and ideas, right? I stubbornly covered the computer and said, I've been slandered. Bai Ningbing paused his movement. Who did this? A few minutes later, Bai Ningbing sat down in front of the computer. He stared at the densely packed color palette, lost in thought. The areas highlighted in red almost made it seem like you were the female lead. I sat there like a student who'd made a mistake, sitting upright in a proper posture, occasionally sneaking glances at him. On Bai Ningbing's glasses, reflected lines of text, sharp as wolves and tigers. Even I thought, for eyes accustomed to business contracts, to gaze upon this amateur writing felt like a waste. After a long while, Bai Ningbing gently removed his glasses. He closed his eyes and pinched the bridge of his nose. I hesitantly suggested, how about I handle this myself? It's fine. Bai Ningbing reopened his eyes. His gaze was pointed. I can take it. Clearly, though, he couldn't handle the second half of it. I saw the corners of Bai Ningbing's eyes redden. He softly murmured, a little stronger. Fang Yuan let out a soft laugh. Isn't it you who hates it when I flirt around? Why are you calling me the focus now? Bai Ningbing swiftly countered. He turned to the flustered Fang Yuan and said, if I were to rely on you, I might as well rely on myself. The study fell into a heavy silence. I awkwardly pointed to Qiang's article. Could you possibly highlight the a little stronger part for him? Bai Ningbing, meticulously copying, controlled the cursor. He slowly selected the text. Do you prefer it a bit more brutal? Not bad, I'll tidy it up during the time restrictions. Online public opinion began to ferment. Fang Yuan had posted before Qiang. Why was Fang Yuan being accused of plagiarism? It was said that Fang Yuan had revised her work later, following Qiang's edits. There were pictures, there was evidence. Qiang's fans somehow got their hands on edited images. They kept reposting them. By the time the rumors were refuted, it was already too late. What was even worse? Qiang posted a status, "Originality is my bottom line." I've personally experienced this, and it's adapted from my life. The female lead has a real-life inspiration with that sentence. Bai Ningbing's true identity was soon uncovered. One of my classmates said, Qiang and Bai Ningbing had graduated from the same high school. They parted ways after the college entrance exam. It turned out that Qiang was the real-life male lead in Bai Ningbing's story. Fang Yuan, you little thief. I was just about to post our marriage certificate when I realized the system had muted me. Dao was on the phone, hopping mad. Those people are really dirty. In a short time, they'd flooded the system. They reported you, but you don't post often. Your account's not that high profile, so it got mistakenly banned. Can't it be fixed over the weekend? Where am I supposed to find a big account to clarify this? I watched helplessly as I was pushed to trending. I was labeled as Sleepy Brother because I love to daydream. And worse, it even escalated to Bai Bingbing's Weibo. In the comments, they were wildly posting excerpts I'd written. I hear my group's lawyer team is really powerful. Fang Yuan, are you going to sue him for the slander? You've caused quite the trouble. Don't you need to clarify? What's your relationship with Qiang? Childhood sweethearts? This matter quickly reached the elders of both families. My mom immediately called me. What are you writing nonsense for? I'm not writing nonsense. It's just a hobby. My mom ruthlessly cut me off. You're a decent young man. What family posts nonsense online? Your mother-in-law called me, you know? Go find Bai Bingbing and clear this up. With that, she angrily hung up. Our family has always been quite traditional. My parents were always busy with life. Their only demand was that I study well. Be obedient. Nobody cared about what I liked or what I wanted to do in the future. During the college entrance exam, they crossed out the literature I loved most and made me choose something else for the evening. I thought that once I got married and left home, things would be different. I went to Bai Ningbing's company. He had just finished an important meeting and was walking out of the conference room. Surrounding him were a group of financial reporters. I don't even know how, but a gossip reporter had snuck in. With her phone in hand, she boldly interrupted. Mr. Bai, what do you think about being written into a melodramatic romance? Will your legal team demand compensation from the other party? Bai Ningbing, who had been speaking, froze for a moment. On his phone screen were thousands of mocking comments about me. He glanced at the phone. Then he locked eyes with the reporter. Security, please escort this lady out. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw me standing at the door, looking wrong. Bai Ningbing removed the microphone from his clothes. Then he made his way through the crowd and walked up to me. Without hesitation, he took my hand. He turned to his colleagues and said, apologies. I have a family matter to attend to, so I'll be leaving now. With him pulling me along, we smoothly made our way into the office. As dusk approached, the blinds filtered the remaining sunlight, casting warm, golden halos across the room. Bai Ningbing guided me to the sofa and sat me down. He went back and poured a glass of warm water. You could have just called me for something like this. What? He pulled out his phone and began scrolling through it. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was a message notification. Just now, Bai Ningbing openly tagged me on his main account. The caption simply read, married. Such a brief yet powerful reply. He pinned it to the top of various company promotions and news outlets. It almost instantly set off a trending topic. The twist was Bai Ningbing and Fang Yuan ** a couple after all. My fans were so moved they were nearly in tears and began tagging Qiang, demanding an apology. Having a secret crush on a married woman. How shameless! Qiang didn't respond to Bai Ningbing. He calmly picked up his jacket. What do you want for dinner? Are you going home? Bai Ningbing chuckled. May I ask, where would a married man go? He didn't go home. On the way back, it was Bai Ningbing driving. The evening traffic was heavy. I sat in the passenger seat, feeling restless, because my mom was on the phone with Bai Ningbing. The call was on speakerphone. Bai Ningbing apologized. I'm sorry, it's our lack of discipline. He stared calmly at the traffic ahead. His index finger gently tapped the steering wheel, producing a rhythmic beep. Nothing serious, he added. What matters most is that he likes you. The brilliant sunset, like shattered fireworks, bathed his face in a warm glow. His steady, soft voice in the midst of the chaotic traffic somehow soothed the restlessness in my heart. I stared at Bai Ningbing and saw the smile at the corner of his lips. He spoke again, his tone thoughtful. The most interesting thing is, if you disappear just because no one supports you, I think it's a shame. My mom sighed on the other end. Oh, the internet is too complicated. He wasn't very experienced. I was afraid that if it weren't for you backing him up, don't worry, I've got everything covered. A feeling of something called touching surged in my heart. But before I could even apply, it came to an abrupt halt. Wait, here's something interesting. Once he hung up the phone, I hesitated and tentatively brought up my novel. Bai Ningbing calmly finished my sentence. Have you finished reading it all? I shivered. Then I heard him add, it's actually quite good. Keep updating, hubby. I quietly shrank into the corner, took out my phone. Brothers, get ready for action. That night, the group chat blew up again. Help, why does he like reading what you write? Doesn't he get embarrassed reading the passionate scenes? Don't ask me. I don't want to know. Our writing aliases are like our lives, they're inseparable. Now that the alias is exposed and the main character knows. Rounding it off, it's like I'm already dead. One of the brothers quietly suggested, why don't you just go for it? After all, you two are already married. Isn't it normal to do something about it? I took a shower, then lay on the bed, thought about it some more. By the usual routine, Bai Ningbing would be sleeping in the study tonight. So nothing can happen? I rolled out of bed. I decided to have a talk with him. The study had a huge floor-to-ceiling window. The neon lights usually stayed on all night. When I pushed the door open, only a dim lamp was lit inside. Bai Ningbing was sitting at the computer. The silent wheel of the mouse emitted a barely perceptible click. Bai Ningbing raised his head. His gaze was unfocused. Not asleep yet? His voice was soft. I hesitated at the door. You haven't slept either. He stared at me, his expression unreadable, but his gaze carried a subtle intensity. My palms grew sweaty from nervousness. I just wanted to come and thank you. You came to thank me? I had planned to quickly thank him and sneak back to the bedroom. But now, without a reason to retreat, the neon lights cast their glow through the glass, outlining Bai Ningbing's graceful silhouette. I stepped in, standing at a safe distance from him. Bai Ningbing removed his glasses, closed his eyes briefly. Feng Yuan, how do you plan to thank me? His question caught me off guard. I remembered what the guys had said, and I don't know where my courage came from. I flashed a grin, showing off my ABS. Is this how I thank you? They called it an old trick, but I felt like it was more like a desperate last resort. I really didn't know how to get out of this. Bai Ningbing's gaze slowly swept over my body. Then he suddenly chuckled. Feng Yuan, is this all you've got? Was he mocking me? My face burned. So embarrassing, I wanted to run back to the bedroom and hide. Never again would I let the idiots in the group give me advice. I'll go first, I said, my words unfinished. But then Bai Ningbing suddenly lunged into my arms. In the next instant, his scorching kiss landed near my ear, and I, of course, fell for it. I delivered myself right to him. This isn't breaking the rules, right? And it was only then Only then did I see what was on Bai Ningbing's computer. My deleted scenes were right there, displayed on his screen. I immediately panicked. How are you seeing this? I'm also a reader. Why can't I read it? The night was tinged with a suggestive, almost seductive hue. It stirred my nerves in ways I hadn't expected. A woman's arm slid around my neck, tightening along with her loose shirt. It felt like something in the air had shifted, becoming hotter, more restless. Bai Ningbing, what are you doing? His laughter flowed slowly through the dark night. Hubby, you write it. I'll make it happen, alright? Let's do it the way you wrote it. In the middle of the night, ***, I recalled the smug look on his face when he talked about having a full house of children. In a fit of rage, I fainted. The next day, Bai Ningbing handed over the matter of protecting our rights to his legal team. I sat in the middle of the conference table, while the elite across from me stared at the colorful palette on the screen, and the room fell into collective silence. I'm sorry, I didn't want the wheels to crush you, I muttered, feeling their gazes pressing down on me. Bai Ningbing, however, was calm as ever. We'll resolve this quickly. In just a few short days, my novel once again hit the trending charts. But this time, the netizens treated it like memoir-style literature. Does Bai Ningbing really tie wrists? No wonder he's the woman who has the rankings in the palm of her hand. She's playing it really hard. Author, please update more. We're begging you. I want to see what you're usually up to. A few days after signing the contract, Qiang received a legal notice. It was about his plagiarism. I had taken him to court. Several of his ongoing film rights negotiations were also forced to be put on hold. A week later, while I was out discussing a collaboration, I ran into Qiang right in front of a publishing house. His papers scattered all over the ground. The top page had his name on it. He was using the pen name he ran. I didn't even acknowledge him. I just turned around and walked away. But Qiang called out to me from behind. I admit, he's helped you a lot. But if he finds out I'm the one being sued, what do you think he'll do? I looked at him, confused. Suddenly, Qiang pulled out his phone. He called Bai Ningbing. The moment the call connected, he suddenly started crying out of frustration. Sister Bai Ningbing, I've never told you this, but everything written in that book is true. I've had a crush on you for years. Can you please not sue me? What did Bai Ningbing say? I don't know. After Qiang hung up the phone, he gave me a forced smile. I rolled my eyes. I didn't bother with him. After the collaboration discussion, I automatically pulled out my phone. I clicked into Bai Ningbing's profile and checked his updates. The post declaring his marriage was completely gone, vanished without a trace. Even the law firm's page with the legal notice was gone. It had all disappeared. This topic had been buzzing for days. It seemed like everything had been deleted. Immediately, someone started a new round of speculations. What's going on here? Are the two of them having issues? They're saying it's just a publicity stunt, based on the plot of the two books. One tells the story of Qiang and Bai Ningbing being childhood sweethearts, who later went abroad to study. Bai Ningbing's unrequited love, leading her to choose a family-arranged marriage. The recent statement was forced by Qiang, making him back down. Come on, you've been reading too many romance novels. Art comes from real life. I closed the app and called Bai Ningbing. His assistant answered. Mr. Fang, Mr. Bai just left. He left in a hurry and forgot his phone. Do you need to tell him something? I can pass it along. No need, I said calmly, slipping my phone into my pocket. I took a few steps, then suddenly turned around and grabbed a taxi. I headed straight for Bai Ningbing's company. He saw me coming with determination and didn't dare approach. He let me enter Bai Ningbing's office without any resistance. Give me the phone. The assistant looked at the phone like it was a hot potato. Once I had the phone, I tried several times to unlock it. I tried Bai Ningbing's birthday, and even my own, but nothing worked. I gave up. I handed the phone back to the assistant. In his puzzled gaze, I sent a message to my agent, Dao Dao. Didn't you have an event out of town? I'm leaving now. Later that night, Dao and I were lounging by the pool at a 5-star hotel. He stared at a group of pretty girls on the shore, pouting. So you're really just running away like this? Didn't we agree that we'd talk things out if there were conflicts? I made a cocktail. Listlessly, I slumped against a stone. I couldn't bring myself to face him. I had rushed to Bai Ningbing's office, determined to get answers. But he wasn't there. It was like punching a pillow. By the time I calmed down, the words were stuck in my throat. Dao clicked his tongue. Don't tell me you don't want to admit you like him. I mumbled under my breath. It's just sticky . What if he really deleted the post for Qiang's sake? Isn't it embarrassing to ask him now? Maybe it's better to just stay carefree. As long as I don't admit it, then the embarrassment isn't mine. Dao's expression became complicated. Didn't you two get married? Why are you still talking about this? A wave of grievance surged up in my chest. The alcohol hit me harder than I expected. I slapped the water's surface in frustration. We're just ordinary friends. Like that guy over there. I don't care. I pointed angrily at a pretty girl playing in the water nearby. Getting married to Bai Ningbing is no different than marrying any random woman. It's the same thing. Dao fell silent. To be exact. He slowly shifted his gaze behind me. It was as if a human-shaped shadow loomed over me. I looked up and met that familiar face, gentle yet somehow a bit seductive. Bai Ningbing. He looked worn out. Too rushed to even change out of his coat. Now, standing behind me on the shore, his smile was cold. Before I knew it, Bai Ningbing had silently grabbed me and walked off. Dao gave me a look, one that seemed to say, good luck with that. He silently slipped beneath the water. As soon as we entered the room, Bai Ningbing tossed me onto the bed. Without a word, he began pulling at my jacket. While I was still struggling, he tied me down securely with my own tie. I was drunk, lying on the bed, letting him do as he pleased. Fang Yuan, can't you remember anything? Bai Ningbing bit my ear in a disciplinary manner, gently tearing into my resolve. What memory? I mumbled. Isn't that your cold? He coolly asked, didn't you say the phone password was our wedding anniversary? What anniversary? What password? Suddenly, he shoved his phone into my hand. Bai Ningbing exhaled a slow breath, ordering, enter the password. If it's wrong, we won't sleep tonight. That's when I realized it was Bai Ningbing's phone. A cold sweat broke out across my back. Oh no, the wedding anniversary. He had mentioned it before. But when was it again? Bai Ningbing seemed to notice my panic. He chuckled lightly, like he was pronouncing a death sentence. Grinding his teeth, he said each word slowly. I shakily entered the password. Click, the phone unlocked successfully. My legs turned to jelly. On the screen was a reminder from earlier this morning. Due to violations in the comment section, the content was temporarily blocked. It said to appeal after the comment section was moderated. Bai Ningbing's expression hardened, as if he was angry that I couldn't remember. If only you'd remembered our wedding anniversary ... Or waited until I handled the company matters before coming to me ... You wouldn't have said such nonsense tonight. I shakily opened the comments section. I almost tripped over my own pants. I didn't expect this at all. The other side played dirty. They mobilized their trolls to flood the comment section with inappropriate content. As a result, Bai Ningbing and the lawyer team's post was both flagged and hidden. The announcement of our marriage was naturally made invisible. But then when Qiang called you in front of me, and you still left, I thought when Qiang came up. Bai Ningbing's voice wavered. His assistant told me. Earlier this morning, a man called. He cried nonstop. Even I couldn't understand what he was saying. Bai Ningbing's tone grew cold. Why go to the lawyer? Why come to me? I blocked him for you. I quickly tried to appease him. I scrolled through the call history. Amidst the long list of names, there was a merciless note. It was the one who helped Mr. Zhao deliver the files. Bai Ningbing didn't even look at it. I don't remember. I checked my phone. And sure enough, it was Qiang's number. Bai Ningbing turned off the lights, leaving only a bedside lamp. We'll continue from where we left off. I clutched my chest, feeling the ache inside. Bai Ningbing chuckled in disbelief. What's this pain you're talking about? I racked my brain for a response. Then I threw the blame back at him. Well, it's not entirely my fault for misunderstanding you. You were serving desserts to someone at the dining table ... When did I ever serve anyone desserts? At the last family dinner. Bai Ningbing fell into a deep thought. You said I'd swap the okra with you. I didn't even remember what dish that was. I don't even like vegetables. Bai Ningbing fell silent for a long while. His tone softened. Don't say anything. I'm afraid you'll make me die from anger. Young, premature death. Wait, what do you mean? Bai Ningbing tightly hugged me. The dim glass reflected his dazed eyes. Suddenly, something flashed in my mind. It was from some Chinese New Year in the past. Bai Ningbing couldn't come back from abroad. He called me in advance. Some friends are coming back this year. The desserts over here are pretty good. I can bring some back for you on my way. How did I respond back then? Thanks, but I don't really like sweets. Do you have okra over there? Cooking it would be inconvenient to bring back. I'll have someone nearby send it to you. At that time, it was just a polite comment I made. But Bai Ningbing remembered it. Bai Ningbing sneered, you remember all the times I've been nice to you. You've even remembered my little gestures. I shrank my neck, wanting to escape. But he held me tight. I was taught a lesson for the whole night. By morning, Bai Ningbing finally finished reading the last entry. In his phone's memo, last year, you told me you didn't like stuffed toys. Is that true or not? I weakly said, I guess I was lying. I have to be punished. You don't need me to say anything. Do you? Alright, let's begin then. The loud knock on the door woke me up the next morning. Dao in. The author's conference is about to start. Why are you still sleeping? I grudgingly opened the door. Blushing, I stepped aside. Bai Ningbing was leisurely pouring me some milk. Dao then smiled knowingly. I get it. I won't hurry you. Is Miss Bai coming with you? Bai Ningbing smiled lightly. It doesn't seem appropriate. I grabbed a piece of bread from the table, kissed Bai Ningbing on the cheek. I'm off first. Bai Ningbing had some business to take care of here. He joined me after the event to head back together. As soon as I arrived at the venue, I noticed the commotion. Feng Yuan and Qiang appeared at the same time. A good show's about to start. Sure enough, a few steps away, I saw Qiang surrounded by fans. He was soaking in the adoration, clearly enjoying the attention. The event hadn't even started yet, and he was already interacting with viewers in the live stream. It wasn't plagiarism. He's lying. The publishing and film rights are still in progress. It won't be affected. I shot Dao a puzzled look. He looked a bit awkward. Feng Yuan, you know this better than anyone. After the palette was posted ... Fans from both sides started arguing even more fiercely. The investors saw the buzz and jumped in. In this day and age, as long as it makes money, who cares about plagiarism, no matter how vile? The thief is, they'll always find defenders once they're about to blow up. I took a deep breath. So if he plagiarized, so be it. Dao me down and said, don't rush. Miss Bai's legal team is very formidable. What if she wins the lawsuit? But a lawsuit isn't something that can be resolved overnight. By the time it's won, the plagiarist will have already made their money. A few thousand in compensation is nothing to them. To them, it's like a drop in the ocean. It seems the platform thinks the commotion isn't enough. They specifically arranged for our seats to be together. Qiang and I exchanged a glance. He smiled and said, I recently went to have my fortune read. They told me that my luck was turning around. See, it's starting to turn, isn't it? I sat beside him. I whispered, whether it's publishing or film, if you can gather a crowd ... I'll consider myself defeated, but why should you get the credit? I propped up my chin and blinked. Because I have money. Money's really that impressive? Qiang sat next to me, looking unconvinced. He was waving at the readers with exaggerated enthusiasm. I waved too, but quietly muttered, "Money really is that impressive," until the authors' conference ended. No one saw the dramatic confrontation they were expecting. Instead, our picture-looking harmonious stranded on Weibo. The comments were full of speculation. What's going on? Are they shaking hands and making peace? Maybe they're smiling in public, but secretly stabbing each other in the back. Still, Qiang dares to provoke Fang Yuan. That's impressive. Fang Yuan has the Bai family backing her, but it's real solid capital. Upstairs, Fang Yuan are also very powerful. Alright, the event finally came to an end. I got into the car, rubbing my aching ankle. I called Bai Ningbing. The phone rang once, then she picked up instantly. There was a flurry of noise on the other end. "Where are you?" "At a business cocktail party." I thought for a moment, then asked, "Is the boss of Qiang Entertainment there?" Bai Ningbing seemed to search for a while before replying. "I'm here, just asking casually." Who knew it would actually work? "Wait for me, I'll come over right now." Dao ripped her sleeves. She pulled out a thick stack of materials. Time to get to work. This time, we have to stir things up. The party was extremely lively, and Bai Ningbing almost immediately spotted me. I walked over to her. "Where is he?" Bai Ningbing looked across the room at the boss of Qiang Entertainment. Gu Shuhuan was sitting on the couch, holding a glass of wine. His gaze was fixed on a young man not far away. His eyes were dark and brooding. I walked over to him. I blocked his line of sight. "Is there something you need?" Gu Shuhuan asked, pulling his gaze away. I placed the thick stack of materials in front of him. "Miss Gu, I'm here to discuss a potential collaboration." He glanced at the titles of the two books, then smiled and said, "Sorry, but I'm not interested in the internal struggles between you two. Besides, this book was chosen by the marketing department. That means it has some market value. I have no reason to reject it. I know it's a plagiarized work. To you, that's probably not much of a stain. But what if the author gets into trouble?" Gu Shuhuan narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean?" I smiled. "Miss Gu," Qiang once privately declared that this book was based on my wife as the prototype for its creation. I printed out the chat screenshots that an undercover fan had sent me in one of the larger groups with 500 members. Qiang openly admitted this fact to the fans, and some parts of the book have already caused harm to my wife's reputation. I intend to hold him fully accountable. Gu Shuhuan paused for a moment, then with a calm tone said, "We have screenwriters. We can easily make revisions. If you want to sue the author, it doesn't really concern us." I widened my eyes. That was true. But in the second half of the year, we had two major lawsuits coming up. If the litigation lines stretched long enough, it could last 1 to 2 years. Every 3 to 4 months, I would send him back onto the trending list. Each time he trended, I'd release new evidence of his plagiarism. That would really tire out your company's screenwriters, though. They'd be rewriting scripts for 2 years, and then we'd enter the preparation stage for filming. By the time the film officially hits theaters, it would be nearly for years. Your company is well funded, so I'm sure you're not afraid of the hassle. Gu Shuhuan smiled. "You're really determined to make this a long game, aren't you?" I smiled. "When you're wronged, you have to vent it out somehow." In the end, Gu Shuhuan relented. "It's just a show after all. If it's too much trouble, it's wiser to avoid it." The publisher was even easier to deal with. Dao spread the news in the circle. Without a word, the publisher directly canceled the collaboration. Gu Shuhuan left. Other investors were clueless about the inner workings of the situation and didn't dare to get involved recklessly. We were both happy. We huddled in a corner drinking. By the time Bai Ningbing came over, I had already drunk too much. On the way back to the hotel, I scrolled through Gu Shuhuan's social media. That guy looked somewhat familiar. Oh, right, he's the youngest son of the Su family. I think he had an engagement with someone before. But looking at that, It seems like Gu Shuhuan might have stolen his love. I savored this bit of gossip, but Bai Ningbing was watching me. I leaned drunkenly on her shoulder. I chuckled. Hey, can you help me look into this? I felt a bit restless inside. Bai Ningbing laughed at my antics. And what if we can't find anything out? I grabbed her hand and pressed it against my ABS. Scratch it for me. She gently turned off the tablet beside us. The surroundings sank into darkness. Her slender fingers, so agile, slowly moving upwards. It still itches, I muttered, feeling emboldened. I just rubbed against her. Scratch more, scratch more. Bai Ningbing's voice was low and husky. This outfit's been on me too long. I only wore it for a little while. Bai Ningbing didn't waste any words. Drunken fools don't get to talk. I never did get to hear the gossip about Gu Shuhuan. A few days later, due to Qiang's work losing its commercial value and getting entangled in the plagiarism scandal, the website took down his work. A crowd gathered, eating melon seeds as they watched. So it really was plagiarism, and he still wouldn't admit it. Qiang's fans came out to defend him. Are you brainless dogs who blindly protect your master? Qiang deleted that ambiguous post, but he never apologized. One day, when Bai Ningbing and I went to the Bai family's old house for dinner, her stepfather sighed. Qiang grew up with you. Don't you think you're being a little too heartless? Bai Ningbing felt a bit sour. We were just high school classmates. If you like him, feel free to invite him over for dinner. I can't say anything about that. If you think he's more suited to be part of the family than Fang Yuan, I suggest you divorce my mom and move out to live with Qiang. Bai's mother kept her head down, concentrating on drinking her soup. Her stepfather's face turned pale, and he didn't dare to say another word. On the way home, I looked at Bai Ningbing confused. It wasn't about Qiang, was it? Why did you go to Europe after you got married? Bai Ningbing sighed. For work. At the time, the overseas market was extremely competitive. In order to expand the business territory, I had no choice but to go. So, is this why you were gone for 3 years? Bai Ningbing gave a slight smile. Are you going to discuss Oker's story with me? I'm not discussing it. You're just a social media dog, talking nonsense that no one should hear. Alright, I admit it. His absence has something to do with me too. The next day, Qiang stormed into my studio. Fang Yuan, you're playing dirty. If the security hadn't stopped me, I would have slapped you across the face. I shrugged my shoulders. I can't stand seeing a thief run rampant. Qiang nearly shouted. It's clearly because you're not capable enough. You're jealous of me. I sneered. Jealous of you? Remarkable ability to steal content? If you're so good, why don't you write a piece that leaves people in awe? I'll leave you alone then. A few months later, Qiang actually wrote a book that did well. Looking at the soaring numbers, Dao help but sigh. Don't say it. Your bitter rival actually has some talent. I clicked on his new chapter's preview. It was good, but it didn't feel quite like him. Sure enough, a few days later, an unknown small-time author stepped forward. To everyone passing by, please help me judge. Author Qiang stole my work, then made revisions. After I exposed him, he promised to give me half of the manuscript fee. But up until now, I haven't received a single penny. I'm living in a rented room, and I can't even afford to eat. This time, no one came to Qiang's defense. The internet was filled with scorn. No wonder Fang Yuan kept stealing all the trending topics and mashed them together. Isn't that how you get famous? The industry's rotten apple. Get out of here. After the scandal broke, Qiang quickly deleted his new book. He posted a message apologizing for the harm caused to the new author and claimed he had sent the full manuscript fee. Someone captured his earlier post, "Originality is my bottom line," and proceeded to mock him mercilessly. Where's your face? Your bottom lines dropped to the center of the earth. Qiang's post remained frozen in time, stuck on that day. Meanwhile, my novel was happily published. The book signing event was packed with people. I was so busy I felt dizzy. I didn't even have time to drink water. Finally, during the intermission, I grabbed a small cake and crouched in the corner. As I ate, I called by Ningbing. Honestly, you should have come with me today. After all, the female lead is you. Bai Ningbing managed to find a break and responded, "Slow down and eat the cake. Give me half." "Okay, I will." Just then, my vision went black. I wasn't sure when exactly. But suddenly, a person wearing a baseball cap appeared in front of me. "Do you need something?" Without warning, he raised a bottle of water and poured it straight over my head. "Feng Yuan, go die." The cold liquid soaked me immediately. Everyone around froze in shock. It felt like a scene straight out of a news report or a movie. A terrifying thought flashed through my mind. Is it sulfuric acid? Amid the screams, I bolted toward the fountain in the center of the hall, diving straight in. By the time Bai Ningbing arrived at the hospital, her face was as dark as storm clouds, dripping with frustration. I was sitting in bed, my hands wrapped in bandages. My eyes were red as I huddled there. Dao Dao was blowing on my hand to ease the pain. Dao Dao's expression was one of utter despair. "Stop acting cute. Your wife is here." I saw Bai Ningbing walking to the bed, carefully pulling the blanket up, covering my head. "How did the doctor say?" "Your forearm is fractured. Conservative treatment should work. You'll be fine. It's not a big deal." "What did that person throw on you?" "Mineral water," Dao Dao sighed in relief. "Well, it was a false alarm. The worst injury was the fracture from the fall. I don't even know. The fountain pool was so shallow. I dove in with full force. The liquid on my face was washed away. But my arms wrecked. Not surprisingly, there's already a video online of me diving into the pool." Dao left. The room was left with just the two of us. Bai Ningbing sat beside me. She lifted my blanket. "Are you hiding because you're embarrassed?" Bai Ningbing glanced at my wrist. "Though it looks silly, your decision was the right one." I think there was no better option than diving into the pool at the time. When I heard her praise me, my eyes lit up. "Come, let's lie down together." Bai Ningbing's clothes were crisp and clean, and she carried a unique fragrance. She laughed at my antics, then kissed me. "Rest for a few days. I'll take care of everything else." A few days later, I was discharged from the hospital. Bai Ningbing rarely took a break for herself. She stayed home to keep me company. One day, while leaning against Bai Ningbing and scrolling through my phone, I saw a trending topic about Qiang. He was reportedly arrested for allegedly inciting businessmen. "What's going on?" Bai Ningbing peeled an apple for me. "The person who splashed water on you is Qiang's old fan. I saw their chat screenshots. I really feel bad for the author. Qiang, I can't help it. A big tree attracts the wind. People get jealous. Wow, today he's at a book signing event. Where? Blue Bay Plaza, I think. Big boss, wait for me to get revenge for you." Qiang posted a dog emoji. "Thanks, Qiang, you're panicking now." He immediately issued a clarification statement. I thought he was just bluffing. But to my surprise, he actually went. I oppose any illegal activities. I hope everyone shows restraint with their words. The crowd below went crazy, cursing. "You're both bad and stupid." Let's not even discuss whether the fans were right or wrong, but to shift the blame onto others after causing trouble is disgusting. Just take the criticism, damn it. Bai Ningbing snatched the phone away. "Qiang called you several times." I didn't answer, I blocked him. Anyone with half a brain knows what he's trying to do. He just wants me to explain myself. I gave him the cold shoulder, but he had secretly wished for my downfall. Even hoped I would get hurt. People like that don't deserve forgiveness. A few days later, Qiang deactivated his account. He vanished completely from the public eye. I heard that he was sued again by authors. This time, the plaintiffs were a group of more than 10 authors. The compensation would bankrupt him. That year's summer and autumn blurred together. The rainy season seemed endless and repetitive, but fortunately, the story had a happy ending. When autumn finally arrived, my novel was still riding high in popularity, and the bandages on my hand had finally been removed. Bai Ningbing took me to Europe for a vacation. Standing in the office where she had spent 3 years, I finally noticed a mall across the street. It was named after my initials. When did you see it? I leaned against the floor-to-ceiling window. Turning around, I asked Bai Ningbing. She calmly removed her watch, tossed it onto the table. I started planning this before we got married. It was earlier than I had expected, even before the wedding. Bai Ningbing walked over and pressed herself against my back. I meant to surprise you in our first year together, but I never expected you'd see it now. She gently kissed my fingers, then pressed them against the window, saying, "This mall is yours." My ears turned bright red. "Why did you do this?" "Because I love you." Bai Ningbing nipped my earlobe. Hearing my breath quicken and falter, she became even bolder. "From the moment I met you, I wanted to make you mine." I thought back to our first awkward, dull-blind date. It didn't seem special at all. Perhaps his tastes were just that unique. The sunset was pulled into a brilliant, captivating dusk. Bai Ningbing didn't say anything more, but let me beg and whimper helplessly in the overwhelming pleasure. The clouds were shattered by the sudden drop of the horizon. Bai Ningbing's voice, tender and deep, echoed in my ears. Sweet! Her words pierced through my heart and dragged up a long-buried memory. It was during my 3rd year of university. I had participated in the school's exchange program. I spent 3 months in France. At the time, I didn't speak French, but my friend dragged me to a private little bar. He pointed at the woman sitting at the bar and said, "You can go tell the bartender one thing. He'll give you a drink for free." I asked, "What should I say?" He smiled and said, "J crook J sweet mood." It means I really like it here. I poked Bai Ningbing, who was sitting at the bar. With a smile, I repeated the phrase. Bai Ningbing's eyes flashed with surprise, and she waved at the bartender. He handed me a glass of orange juice. Then he whispered something in French into my ear. Seeing that I didn't understand, he switched to English and said, "Tonight, only orange juice." That special experience left me with a fond impression of him. After that, every day after class, I'd come to this bar, have a glass of orange juice and wave at Bai Ningbing, saying I really like it here. But as my studies got busier, I stopped coming. That little moment soon faded from my memory. Years later, I had made some progress with my French. So when Bai Ningbing said that phrase, I finally understood it. I was utterly taken by surprise. I was a mess, not even able to stand properly. Bai Ningbing let out a low laugh, Fang Yuan. Now, you should understand what that phrase means. J crook J sweet mood wasn't just I like it here. It was I think I've fallen for you. I had spent an entire week back then, with a beaming smile confessing to Bai Ningbing, only to disappear without a trace. It wasn't until 3 years ago, at the matchmaking banquet, that we met again. And this romantic encounter was able to continue.